You know the drill. There's the photo op in the hard hat, the visit to the local market where the candidate sort of awkwardly holds a fish.
Vague promises about freezing transport fares.
Exactly. It's standard operating procedure. It's almost uh, comforting in a really boring sort of way.
It's usually about potholes, bus routes, and, who loves the NHS the most. It's safe.
Exactly. But today we're looking at something that feels fundamentally different. We're analyzing the launch of the Reform UK campaign for the 2028 election, and specifically the candidate Laila Cunningham.
Right.
She hasn't just launched a campaign, she's basically thrown a hand grenade into the whole discourse on British identity.
It's volatile.
Yeah.
And frankly, looking at the stack of sources we have here, her manifesto, the legal analysis of her proposals, and the immediate, really intense backlash from community leaders, this isn't just a London story. This is a collision of three massive tectonic plates: national security, religious freedom, and the very specific legal powers of the police.
And that is our mission for this deep dive. We're not here to take sides, and we're certainly not here to tell you who to vote for. We're here to unpack why this specific policy proposal giving police the power to stop and search women specifically for wearing the burqa is resonating so loudly. We need to understand the legal mechanics she's proposing and, the sociological fallout that people like Sadiq Khan are warning about.
Right. And to understand the policy, you first have to understand the messenger. Because if you just looked at the demographic data on a spreadsheet, Laila Cunningham is not who you would expect to be leading this charge.
Let's start there then. Laila Cunningham. She is a British-born Muslim woman of Egyptian heritage.
Right.
And she's running for Reform UK. Now, for anyone following British politics, Reform UK has historically held a very hardline stance on immigration and cultural integration.
To put it mildly, yeah.
Usually, their critics accuse them of being anti-Islam, so having a Muslim woman as their standard bearer well, it's distinct. It's a twist.
It's a strategic disruption. It complicates the standard narrative. Usually when a right-wing party targets Islamic dress, the opposition can easily frame it as xenophobia or racism.
The white outsider attacking a minority community narrative.
Yeah, but Cunningham short-circuits that. She's positioning herself not as an outsider, but as the insider who has, in her view, integrated.
It's that Nixon goes to China dynamic. Only Nixon could go to China. Maybe only Cunningham can propose a burqa ban.
Exactly. But there's another layer to her bio that I think is actually more important than her heritage, which the sources really emphasize. She isn't just a politician. She's a former prosecutor for the Crown Prosecution Service, the CPS.
That stood out to me as well. When you read her policy statements, they don't sound like ideological manifesto points. They sound like legal arguments.
Yeah.
She writes like she's building a case against a defendant.
She does. And that prosecutor's lens shapes her entire worldview. A prosecutor's job, fundamentally, is to identify risk and secure convictions. They look at the world and see potential threats to the social order. They deal in evidence and identification. So when Cunningham looks at a burqa, she isn't seeing a religious symbol. She's seeing an obstacle to identification. She sees a blind spot.
Okay, let's get into the meat of this proposal then. Stop and search. This is such a loaded term in London. We're talking about the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, right? PACE.
We are. And this is where the technical detail really matters, to understand why this is so radical.
Yeah.
Currently, under Section 1 of PACE, that's the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, 1984, a police officer needs reasonable grounds to suspect someone is carrying stolen goods or a weapon to stop them.
And reasonable grounds usually means specific intelligence or, specific behavior, right? You can't just stop someone because you don't like their hat or they look nervous.
Right. It has to be objective. But what Cunningham is proposing is a shift that aligns more with, say, Section 60 powers, which are usually temporary orders used in areas anticipating violence, but she wants to make it a standing power regarding facial coverings.
So her argument is that the concealment itself provides the reasonable suspicion.
That's it.
That is a massive legal leap. She is saying that the act of wearing a burqa or niqab is, in and of itself, a signal of potential criminal intent.
Explicitly. She argues that in an open society, and she uses that phrase repeatedly, participation in the public square requires visibility. If you hide your face, you're opting out of the social contract of transparency. Therefore, in her view, the state has a right to intervene to check who you are.
It's interesting. She uses the phrase open society. It reminds me of Karl Popper's paradox of tolerance, but she's flipping it.
How so?
Well, usually, open society implies tolerance of different lifestyles. She seems to be defining open, quite literally, visually open.
That is a great catch. She's redefining the term. To her, open means transparent. No barriers, no masks, no veils. She argues that facial recognition, and not just the AI kind, but human-to-human connection, is the bedrock of British social interaction.
It's a trust issue for her.
It's a trust issue. If I can't see you, I can't trust you, and therefore you are a security risk.
I want to drill down on that criminal intent argument, though, because in the sources, she justifies this by saying anonymity is a security risk. Is there any data to back that up? Do we have a rash of bank robberies committed by women in burqas?
Well, that's where her argument moves from statistical to philosophical.
Yeah.
The data does not really support a massive waves of burqa-clad crime in London.
Right.
It's just not there in the crime stats. However, she argues from a kind of broken windows perspective.
Broken windows theory, the idea that visible signs of disorder encourage more crime.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She claims that allowing anonymity in public spaces creates a permissive environment for those who do want to cause harm. It's a preemptive security posture. She's saying, we don't wait for the crime to happen. We remove the conditions that make the crime easier to commit.
And she pairs this with a much broader cultural critique. She went on record in her launch speech saying that certain districts in London Tower Hamlets, Newham, no longer reflect traditional British values.
And she cites the prevalence of foreign languages and religious attire as evidence of a cultural drift.
Which, again, coming from a woman of Egyptian heritage, is a very specific type of critique. She's drawing a line in the sand about what Britishness looks like.
It feels like she's establishing a hierarchy of identity. She's saying, I am British first, Muslim second, and she's demanding that priority from everyone else.
It's an assimilationist argument. She is effectively saying, look, I did the work to fit into this legal and cultural framework. I speak the language, I show my face, I enforce the law. Why haven't you?
It validates the feelings of voters who feel alienated by the speed of cultural change in London. She's giving them permission to say, hey, even the Muslim candidate thinks this is too much.
That's the political weapon she provides Reform UK credibility.
She acts as a shield against accusations of racism. But, as you can imagine, this credibility is fiercely contested by the people actually living in those communities.
Right, let's pivot to the backlash. Because you cannot drop a policy like stop and search for burqas in 2028 London without setting off all the alarms.
The reaction was instantaneous. And it wasn't just, we disagree. It was, this is dangerous.
We have statements here from Shesta Gohir. She's the CEO of the Muslim Women's Network UK. She did not mince words. She called the remarks hateful.
But look at the specific context of her warning. Gohir isn't just offended. She's worried about physical safety.
Right.
Her argument is that when a major political figure, especially a former prosecutor, validates the idea that women in burqas are suspicious, that message filters down to the street level.
It creates a permission structure for harassment.
Exactly. If the police are stopping these women, the public thinks, well, they must be doing something wrong. The state says they are suspicious. Gohir argues this will lead to a spike in verbal and physical abuse against Muslim women, regardless of whether the police actually find anything.
It reminds me of the debate around stop and search for young black men. The argument has always been that the process is the punishment.
Yeah.
Being stopped is the humiliation.
And Gohir takes it a step further regarding the outcome. She argues that this policy, which claims to be about opening society and integrating women, will achieve the exact opposite.
How so?
If a woman feels she'll be harassed by police every time she leaves her house, what does she do?
She stays home.
She retreats. She withdraws from the public sphere. So you end up with greater segregation, not less. You push these women further into the margins.
That's the paradox. In trying to force visibility, you might just create invisibility.
That is the core counter-argument from the community leaders. You cannot police someone into feeling British. You can't arrest someone into integration.
Then we have the political heavyweight, Sadiq Khan, the current mayor. He has to walk a fine line here, doesn't he?
He does. Khan's response was very, very calculated. He went straight for the civil liberties angle.
The classic liberal argument.
Right. He argued that a citizen's choice of attire is fundamentally not a matter for state intervention. Whether it's a bikini or a burqa, the government stays out of the wardrobe.
But he also brought up the body count of rhetoric.
Yes. He noted the historical link between inflammatory political language and statistical rises in hate crimes. He's essentially warning Cunningham, this isn't just a debate club topic. Your words have consequences on the street.
So we have this clash. Cunningham frames it as security and cohesion.
And Khan and Go here frame it as liberty and safety.
It's a battle over the definition of safety. For Cunningham, safety means I can identify everyone around me.
And for Go here, safety means I can walk down the street without being harassed by the state.
I want to go back to this prosecutor's lens versus a lived experience idea because I feel like that is the engine driving this whole conflict.
It is, absolutely.
You mentioned earlier that Cunningham sees the covered face as a hurdle to justice. If you spend 20 years in court trying to prove who did what, anonymity is your enemy.
It's a professional hazard. To a prosecutor, ambiguity is a failure. But to a religious believer, that covering isn't ambiguity, it's identity.
Right.
It's a spiritual practice rooted in modesty and submission to God. It is deeply personal.
So when Cunningham applies a bureaucratic, legalistic solution, stop and search, to something that's spiritual and personal, it feels like a violation.
It's a category error in the eyes of her critics. She's trying to solve a cultural discomfort with a criminal justice tool. She's using a hammer to fix a painting.
But let's play devil's advocate for a second. The sources do mention the broader European context. I mean, France has banned the face veil. Other countries have restrictions.
Right.
Cunningham isn't just inventing this out of thin air.
No, she's not. But the distinction is really important. France bans the veil in public spaces based on laïcité secularism. It's a flat ban on the item itself.
Okay.
Cunningham is proposing a police power. She's not just saying it's illegal to wear it. She's saying wearing it makes you a suspect subject to search. That is a much more aggressive, confrontational stance than even the French model.
That's a key distinction. One is a dress code, the other is criminal profiling.
Exactly. And that's why the open society argument is so contentious. She's arguing that transparency is a prerequisite for citizenship.
This brings us to the British values debate. We hear this term every single election cycle, British values, but nobody ever seems to write down exactly what they are.
Well, the government tried in the PREVENT strategy years ago. Democracy, rule of law, individual liberty, mutual respect.
Sure.
But Cunningham is adding a visual component to that.
Right. To her, British isn't just believing in democracy, it's speaking English and showing your face.
She's aestheticizing citizenship. She's saying you have to look and sound the part to be part of the club. And for a lot of voters who feel that their neighborhoods have changed too fast, that is a very appealing message.
They feel like strangers in their own city.
And Cunningham is validating that feeling. But she's doing it by alienating another group of citizens who are arguably the most marginalized already.
That's the trade-off. It's a majoritarian argument. She's betting that there are more voters who want order and assimilation than there are voters who prioritize multicultural accommodation.
And the timing is interesting too, right? The 2028 election is coming up. This feels like a strategy to force Sadiq Khan into a corner.
Oh, it's 100% a trap. If Khan defends the burqa too vigorously, reform can paint him as soft on integration or, favoring sectarian interests over British values.
And if he stays silent, he alienates his base. Cunningham has chosen this issue specifically because it acts as a wedge.
It forces the conversation onto her turf. Instead of talking about housing prices or knife crime, which are huge issues, we're talking about what women wear.
And notice how it shifts the focus of security. Usually when we talk about security in London, we talk about gangs, knife crime, cyber fraud. Cunningham has successfully reframed security to be about cultural cohesion. She is arguing that a cohesive society is a safe society, and a fractured society is dangerous.
Which is a powerful narrative, even if the causal link is a bit shaky.
It's visceral. It speaks to emotion, not just crime stats.
So looking ahead, this isn't going to go away. This is the opening salvo of the campaign.
We're going to see this debate get hotter. We need to watch how the other parties react. Will the conservatives try to outflank reform? Will Labor stick to the civil liberties defense?
And what about the legal feasibility? Say she wins. Say she becomes mayor tomorrow. Can she actually do this?
That is the million-pound question. Amending PACE, the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, to make clothing a ground for reasonable suspicion, would likely require national legislation, not just a mayoral decree. And even if she got that, it would likely face immediate challenges in the Supreme Court. It almost certainly violates the Human Rights Act regarding freedom of religion and expression.
So she might be promising something she knows she can't deliver.
Or she's happy to have the fight with the courts because it proves her point that the establishment is blocking common sense reform.
It's a win-win for a populist campaign.
Exactly. Even if you lose in court, you win in the court of public opinion. Classic populist playbook. The judges are against us. The system is rigged. It creates an enemy.
This is a lot to digest. We've covered legal definitions, sociology, political strategy,